And, this was a guy who was a never Trumper before he realized that Trump was the path to power. And he was courted by the most extreme factions within the Israel lobby. We're talking now about Trump's nominee for defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, who wrote a book on becoming how to be an American crusader. And this is him in Jerusalem at an event sponsored partly by Ateret Kohanim, which is the group that raises money from the US and around the world to colonize East Jerusalem, areas like Silwan, where Palestinians face violent home demolitions, and to eject people from their homes, indigenous Palestinians, and just put Jewish settlers in hours later. And he was taken on a tour of the most extreme settlements in the occupied West Bank. And he says one of the craziest things an American politician has ever said about Israel. I mean, there's a lot of competition because all these American politicians are all competing to be Netanyahu's Shabbos Goy. Not that he observes the Sabbath, but you know what I'm saying. Listen to what he had to say.
And today, Jennifer and I and others had a chance to go see the Western Wall of the Temple Mount, the Western Wall tunnels, so much of the old city. And as you stand there, you can't help but behold the miracle before you. And it got me thinking about another miracle that I hope all of you don't see too far away. Because 1917 was a miracle, 1948 was a miracle, 1967 was a miracle, 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital was a miracle, and there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible.
I mean, that's apocalypse talk right there. He's basically calling for the destruction of the third holiest site in Islam and the construction of the third Jewish temple. He's endorsing the agenda of the most extreme factions of Netanyahu's coalition government, which is the most fanatical government in Israel's history. And you rarely hear someone who has any influence on a national level in U.S. politics going that far that I can remember. Since Aaron, I just saw that Aaron stepped away for a second.
Of all Trump's picks at the cabinet level, he to me is the scariest because this guy is in charge of the Pentagon. So has anybody in history, I mean, or at least in U.S. history, been in such a high position with such fanatic views if he is confirmed? I don't think so. I think he would be the most fanatic cabinet member in history. Maybe I'm missing something. I mean, like George Bush was an evangelical, obviously, but did he ever talk about Palestine in that way? No, he even actually referred to Palestine as an occupation. I think he understood there was an occupation. Pete Hegseth, whatever his name is, this is off the charts. Along with Mike Huckabee, Trump's potential ambassador to Israel, also off the charts in fanaticism.
Yeah, I mean, we know Huckabee. He's sort of a John Hagee Christian Zionist acolyte. He sees Jerusalem, occupied Jerusalem, as the future landing pad of the Messiah. And he's sort of more of a traditional Christian Zionist. Like you see when you're on a flight to Israel, you'll see them and they're wearing like logos or pins of Israel and America. They tend to be over the age of 60 or 70, travel in packs. They listen to whatever their tour guides tell them. Pete Hegseth's from another generation. He's from another wing of the Christian right. And he, to the extent that he really is following Christian values. I mean, there are some stories at Fox News that are pretty mind-blowing. But what he's saying there, what he's doing is he's endorsing the temple movement. The temple movement is supported by Itamar Ben-Gvir, the security minister, Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister, and is a movement that believes that the Jewish prayer that takes place at the Western Wall is actually heretical, and that Jews are not supposed to pray there. They're actually supposed to sanctify God up beyond the wall at what is now the Al-Aqsa compound, which needs to be destroyed and replaced with the third temple. And it is there that they will continually sacrifice sheep in order to sanctify God, as the Jews of the Bible did, as the original Jews did before the second temple was destroyed. And that requires religious warfare, a full-on religious war, which Pete Hegseth seems to represent in his tattoo collection. He's got a Crusader tattoo. Then he's got some Declaration of Independence tattoos on his arm. And the unit he served within Iraq. But it's like clownishness. It's complete clownishness. And to have a defense secretary like this, I mean, Aaron, let's face it, Lloyd Austin, he's basically under the influence of the Israel lobby. He has no power to resist anything Netanyahu wants to do. He's a political appointee and loyalist of Biden. Every defense secretary of our lifetime has basically done what Israel wanted, short of attacking Iran.
And Raytheon too. In the case of Lloyd Austin, he was on the Raytheon board and will be handsomely rewarded as soon as he leaves public office and returns to his old role.
Great point. I mean, and Patrick Shanahan, I mean, he was another defense lobbyist. All these guys walk through the revolving door. Pete Hegseth sort of comes out of nowhere. He comes out of the Fox green room. That's the same place Trump got John Bolton, by the way, into the defense secretary, onto that podium to speak to the world, into one of the most consequential positions in the world, because the Pentagon has bases, an archipelago of bases around the world. This discussion, if we were having this discussion and we were like Dutchmen or we were Canadians and we were talking about Canadian politics, nobody really would be watching from outside our country. But people are watching us now because we're talking about an administration that will have an enormous influence on what takes place around the world. And this clown will be the head of the Pentagon, the largest office building in the world. And so in a lot of ways, I can welcome this as lifting the mask on U.S. empire and lifting the mask on the Israel-U.S. special relationship, and in doing great damage to it in the process. If I were an Israel lobbyist, I would be pretty worried about Pete Hegseth and what he could actually do to the perception of the U.S.-Israeli relationship, because it's all going to be out there now. And he has said that that Zionism and American national security interests are fundamentally intertwined, and that connection forms the foundation of Western civilization. He said that to a Israel lobby group. And he said that he fought not to prevent wars, but to prepare for a war on behalf of Israel that his sons, Gunnar, Boone, and Rex, would fight. I don't know if he was in a naming competition with Sarah Palin, but he said that. It's clownish in the same way that Elise Stefanik is just so making it so obvious. I mean, this is someone who wouldn't be known if she weren't serving Israel's agenda in Congress, browbeating class presidents for not banning Palestine solidarity student groups, for the same reason that Mike Huckabee lifts the mask. But every other U.S. ambassador to Israel has basically been an Israeli-U.S. reciprocal ambassador. Mike Huckabee is just making it so clear what it's all about. This is deeply damaging to U.S. soft power.
Yes. And this explains the animus toward Trump from the establishment. It's not really a policy difference, because what has Trump done except for say nice things about Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-un that really differs from other presidents, like policy-wise? But he does lift the mask off. He does blurt out the wrong things. He does say things like, we're in Syria to take the oil. You're supposed to say we're in Syria to fight terrorism and spread democracy. And he appoints fanatics like this guy who do expose that what the U.S. really is, which is a global hegemon in alliance with the most extremist government in the world, Israel.
And not just an alliance, I think, like in many ways under the influence of.
Well, whatever the nature of the relationship, the point is they're in lockstep, and people like Antony Blinken will go out there and pretend to care about Palestinians while still perpetuating their genocide. These people won't. They dispense with the pretense of concern for human rights and all that. So yeah, in that respect, I agree with you that people like this, it is a mask off moment. The fanaticism at that level, the open fanaticism at that level, is something unprecedented, I think.